Hello and welcome to a special edition of India First. I'm Gaurav Sawant. This is your destination for all the news that keeps you and India's national interest supreme. I'm Gaurav Sawant. Action-packed 60 minutes on this special broadcast, and there is breaking news coming in. We urge viewer discretion. Some of the images I'm about to show you could be disturbing. This is a shattering video of the 22nd of April Pahalgam attack, and this is a tourist from Ahmedabad, Gujarat, Rishi Bhatt. He was on a zip line at that Besaran Valley when terrorists opened fire. He's oblivious, but look at those images behind him. There are people who are running. They're frantically running to save their lives. This man does not know it just as yet. You hear the fire. Hear the fire. He still can't. But what you see behind you, hundreds of people enjoying themselves in the most beautiful meadows. This area has often been described as mini Switzerland. There are small gazebos here. There are small eateries all around. But that's where people start firing. Those terrorists start firing. And people are running helter-skelter. Watch that man as he's shot at and falls to the ground. Listen in.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Some of the images we are about to show you will shock you. They're horrifying. We urge viewer discretion. They're disturbing images and they're actually chilling. People who'd gone to Jammu and Kashmir to enjoy a summer in paradise. Kashmir is seen as Jannat, or a piece of paradise. And that paradise turned into hell for 26 Indian pilgrims and tourists. Many of these tourists were in Jammu and Kashmir. Some had gone for the Vaishno Devi pilgrimage and then decided to go to Kashmir to enjoy the valley, the Dal Lake in Srinagar, these beautiful meadows in Pahalgam. Watch this tourist from Ahmedabad, Rishi Bhatt. He was on the zip line in that valley because this valley is beautiful, and this is where terrorists came from different directions and opened fire. We will hear firsthand what happened that time, because look at that smile on his face now and that horror, and watch what's happening in the backdrop. There are people who are desperately scrambling. They're running away and suddenly somebody opens fire. Most people haven't realized, but those who've realized, they're running to pick up their loved ones. There are others who fall into the ground and others who are still running for the cover of those tall, those magnificent deodar trees, hoping that those trees would shield them and protect them. Little did they know that there were terrorists who were waiting even there.
Allahu Akbar.
Take a look at what happened.
Allahu Akbar.
So the man behind, he says Allahu Akbar not once but thrice, and then Rishi is on his way on the 22nd of April. You hear the gunshots, you hear people frantically, desperately running away. And that couple, perhaps, and there he falls. Has he been shot at? Has he been shot dead? Because that was the man who was running for cover. There are people who are running to save their children. And yet you hear the agony, the pain, the horror, and you see bodies lying there, little children standing right next to the bodies of their father, killed by these radical Islamist terrorists. And Rishi Bhatt, the man you see on that zip line, the tourist from Ahmedabad in Gujarat, joins me on this special broadcast. Rishi, you're lucky to be alive. Rishi, when you recollect what happened, what can you tell us, Rishi? What happened that day?
हम लोग वहाँ पे पहले तो 22 को वहाँ पे पहुँचे थे। हमने वहाँ पे साइट सीइंग वगैरह किया, फोटोग्राफ्स लिए, वीडियोग्राफ्स लिए। फिर वहाँ पे बहुत सारे एडवेंचर्स थे, तो हम एडवेंचर करने का सोच रहे थे और हमने एडवेंचर किया। फिर हम जब जिप लाइन कर रहे थे तो 3-3 की सीक्वेंस में वो लोग भेज रहे थे फैमिली मेम्बर्स को। तो पहले एक फैमिली गया, फिर दूसरा फैमिली गया, फिर हमारी बारी थी। जब मेरा लड़का और मेरी वाइफ नीचे पहुँच गई, मैं जिप लाइन में बैठा था, तब फर्स्ट फायरिंग हुई थी। और आफ्टर 20 सेकंड के बाद मुझे पता चला कि नीचे फायरिंग हो रही है और लोग मर रहे हैं। तो फिर जैसे मैं नीचे पहुंच गया तब मैंने देखा कि मेरे वाइफ के सामने 2 लोगों को रिलीजन पूछ के गोली मार दी है।
आप वहां पहुंच चुके थे, आपके सामने आपने देखा कि लोगों से उनका धर्म पूछा, उनका रिलीजन पूछा और गोली मार दी। फिर आपने क्या किया?
यस, कि आप हिंदू हो या मुसलमान हो, कौन से क्या हो आप, वैसे रिलीजन पूछ के ही मार रहे थे वो लोग। फिर थोड़ा डिस्टेंस रह गया था, वहाँ से मैं जिप लाइन कूद के निकल गया और फिर मेरे वाइफ और मेरे बच्चे को लेके वहाँ से भागना शुरू किया और हम लोग वहाँ से भागने निकल गए। फिर वहाँ पे हमको एक स्पॉट ऐसा मिला जो ब्लाइंड स्पॉट था, क्योंकि पूरा ग्राउंड ओपन था। ओपन ग्राउंड में रहते तो हम कहीं भी लॉक हो सकते थे। तो हमने वो देखा तो हम वहाँ पे छुप गए। हम छुपने गए तब हमने देखा कि ऑलरेडी भी 3-4 लोग वहाँ पे छुपे हुए। तो हम पहले वहाँ पे छुप गए। अराउंड 8 to 10 मिनट्स के आसपास थोड़ा फायरिंग कम हुआ तो हमने वहाँ से भागना शुरू किया।
ठीक है। अच्छा, जब आपने भागना शुरू किया तो क्या आपको अंदाजा था कि गोलियां कितनी तरफ से आ रही थी, कहां से आ रही थी, कितने ये आतंकी थे जो गोलियां चला रहे थे? आप उस समय को अगर आप याद करते हैं तो आपके मन में क्या क्या उभर कर आता है इस समय?
मैं बताता हूँ आपको। फर्स्ट ऑफ थिंग तो वो लोग 2 लोग ग्राउंड के अंदर थे जो सबको रिलीजन पूछ के गोलियां मार रहे थे। बाकी जो थी वो झाड़ियों से फायरिंग हो रही थी। टोटल मेरे अंदाज से 4 to 5% हो सकते हैं जिस तरह से गोलियां चल रही थी उस हिसाब से। 2 लोग तो ग्राउंड के बीचों बीच थे, वो सब लोगों ने देखा और वो 2 लोग सबको रिलीजन पूछ के मार रहे थे। बट झाड़ियों के अंदर से फायरिंग हो रही थी, वो कितने लोग थे उसका हमको कोई आइडिया नहीं था।
अच्छा, तो कुछ लोग झाड़ियों के अंदर से गोलियां चला रहे थे, कुछ 2 लोग आप कह रहे हैं बिल्कुल बीच में आ गए। जो लोग वहां मौजूद थे, जो लोकल लोग थे, स्थानीय लोग थे, उन्होंने किस तरह से मदद की? क्या वहां से निकलने में आपकी मदद की? जिप लाइन पे जो 2 लोग आपके पीछे दिख रहे हैं और उनसे किस तरह की मदद मिल पाई या अगर मिली तो?
वो जो हमको जिप लाइन करवा रहा था जो बंदा, वो एग्जैक्टली हमारे पहले, मतलब मेरे जिप लाइन की उसके पहले मेरे सामने उन लोगों ने 9 लोगों को जिप राइड करवाई। उसके अंदर मेरी फैमिली भी थी, मेरा वाइफ थी, मेरा बच्चा था। ठीक है, तो उस टाइम पे वो कभी भी नहीं बोला अल्लाहू अकबर, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं बोला। नॉर्मली उसने जिप लाइन करवाई। जब मैं रेडी हो गया था, सेट हो गया था, मेरा सेल्फी स्टिक वगैरह सब अरेंज किया, तब वो 3 बार बोला अल्लाहू अकबर, अल्लाहू अकबर, अल्लाहू अकबर, और फायरिंग स्टार्ट हुई। और वो नीचे देख के बोल रहा था। मुझे भी तब भी नहीं मालूम पड़ा था, बट 23 को अहमदाबाद पहुंच के मैं पूरी फैमिली के साथ वीडियो देख रहा था, तब ये चीज़ हमको नोट डाउन हुई कि ये बंदा ऐसा बोल रहा है। उसके बाद फायरिंग हुई। आगे के एक भी वीडियो में कहीं फायरिंग या ऐसा कुछ भी माहौल नहीं है, पर ये बंदा जब ये 3 वर्ड्स बोलता है उसके बाद ही ये माहौल को क्रिएट हुआ।
और आपको क्या वहां पर कुछ सस्पिशियस लगा, कुछ ऐसा लगा कि अजीबोगरीब आसपास है, मदद मिल पा रही थी, या आपको किसी व्यक्ति का बिहेवियर ऐसा लगा कि वो व्यक्ति मददगार आपके लिए नहीं हो पा रहा है या आप लोगों के लिए नहीं हो रहा है?
नहीं, ऐसा वहाँ पे एक चीज़ थी कि वहाँ पे इंडियन आर्मीज नहीं थी, बट वहाँ पे लोकल पुलिस भी थी जम्मू कश्मीर की, और वहाँ पे सिक्योरिटी भी थे। ऐसा नहीं कि सिक्योरिटी का कोई वहाँ पे था ही नहीं, ऐसा नहीं था, सिक्योरिटी थी वहाँ पे। हाँ, बट आर्मी सिक्योरिटी नहीं थी वहाँ पे। वो क्यों नहीं थी आई डोंट नो, बट जैसे ये पूरी घटना हुई, मैंने एक चीज़ मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगा कि 18 to 22 मिनट्स के अंदर आर्मी ने पूरे टूरिस्ट को कवर कर लिया था और उन लोगों को सेफली नीचे पार्किंग तक लेके आए थे।
अच्छा, कश्मीर को जैसा हम बता भी रहे थे कि जन्नत कहते हैं, क्या आप एक बार फिर जन्नत जाना चाहेंगे, और कितनी जल्दी आपको लगता है कि आपके मन में वो कॉन्फिडेंस आएगा कि मैं कश्मीर फिर जा सकता हूँ?
भाई, जन्नत तो है, स्वर्ग भी है, और नर्क की सीढ़ी भी वहीं से है।
स्वर्ग भी और नर्क भी।
मतलब जाओ, कोई दिक्कत नहीं, पर वापिस आने का कुछ भरोसा नहीं है।
इस समय आप सरकार से क्या चाहते हैं? क्योंकि नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार, और आपने प्रधानमंत्री को भी सुना, उन्होंने कहा कि दुनिया के किसी कोने में छिपे होंगे आतंकवादी, तो उन आतंकवादियों को ढूंढ निकालेंगे, और वो भी जो आतंकवाद को शह देते हैं उनको भी सबक सिखाया जाएगा। तो आप क्या चाहते हैं सरकार से?
मैं इतना एक्सेप्टेशन मुझे उस दिन से है कि मोदी सर जो है, जैसे अपने सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक किया था पुलवामा हमले के बाद, वैसा ही कुछ 15-20 दिन के अंदर इंडिया को बहुत बड़ी न्यूज़ नरेंद्र मोदी की गवर्नमेंट की साइड से हमको मिलेगी।
मतलब एक्शन होगा, सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक आप चाहते हैं, लेकिन पाकिस्तान ने भी अपनी पूरी सेना इस समय लगा रखी है और तनाव काफी है सरहदों पर।
110%। और जिस तरह से मैंने देखा है वहाँ पे कि जो 18-22 मिनट्स के अंदर आर्मी ने हमको कवर कर लिया, वो लोग 160 to 180% की बटालियन में वो लोग ऊपर आ रहे थे, उनके पास इतने शस्त्र थे, और जैसे हमको कवर किया, जैसे 10 लोगों का हमारा ग्रुप था भागने में, तो 3 आर्मी अफसर ने हमको कवर करके नीचे पार्किंग तक लेके गए, बाकी की बटालियन ऊपर मेन स्पॉट पे गई, और वहाँ पे जिस तरह का सिचुएशन था, वहाँ पे आर्मियों की गाड़ी लग गई थी इतनी सारी, और जो उन लोगों का एक्शन था, वो एक्शन के हिसाब से 110% वो लोग 15-20 दिन में हमको कुछ अच्छी न्यूज़ देंगे और पूरे देश को अच्छी न्यूज़ देंगे।
ऋषि, ये ईश्वर की बड़ी कृपा है कि आप सुरक्षित वापस लौट आए हैं, और आप सुरक्षित रहिए, अपने परिवार के साथ रहिए। फॉर जॉइनिंग मी हियर ऑन इंडिया फर्स्ट, ऋषि भट्ट फ्रॉम अहमदाबाद, गुजरात। मेनी थैंक्स। Now, there have been a series of very high-level meetings that took place in the national capital today. Crucial meetings just days after India's big military muscle flex. Air exercises, exercise Akraman, INS Surat, the guided missile destroyer hitting a sea-skimming target, the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile capable of hitting a target more than 400 kilometers away and very accurately. And since it's a supersonic cruise missile, very difficult to stop it. All of this, Pakistan is very rattled. The kind of airborne exercises, the Indian Army is also doing the heliborne exercises, deep insertion exercises. Pakistan appears to be rattled, but what is Pakistan doing? It's resorting to nuclear saber rattling because it realizes conventionally the Indian armed forces are far superior. But is anyone buying Pakistan's nuclear threat, or is Pakistan a country that's cried wolf for far too long, and now there are consequences for General Asim Munir's actions? We get you more in this report. Monday morning saw a series of high-level security meetings in New Delhi. Union Defence Minister Rajnath Singh was briefed by the Chief of the Army Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi, in South Block. Rajnath Singh then met Prime Minister Narendra Modi. On Sunday, the Indian Navy demonstrated its firepower, launching the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile in a combat exercise. The message to Pakistan, a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror, is clear. India is battle ready. It's this military muscle flex that has triggered a full-blown meltdown in Pakistan, with several Pakistani political leaders issuing explicit threats of nuclear retaliation against India.
उन्होंने कह दिया ना कि अगर हमारा पानी बंद करेंगे तो फिर जंग के लिए तैयार हो जाएं। ये जो गोरी, शहीन, गजनवी, ये चौकों में सजाने के लिए नहीं हमने रखे हुए, ये हमने हिंदुस्तान के लिए रखे हैं बाबा।
Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Asif also threatened India with a full-blown war.
इंडिया जो है ना वो अपनी जो हमारी इंफॉर्मेशन है कि वो इस वक्त जो है एक ऑल आउट वॉर की जगह जो है पाकिस्तान के शहरों में जो है वो दहशतगर्दी की जो है पूरी तैयारी कर रहा है। मैं आप लोगों की वसातत से बताना चाहता हूँ कि हम उसके लिए पूरा तैयार हैं और ये टिट फॉर टैट होगा।
Pakistan has issued a nuclear threat to India even in the past.
हमारे वहाँ 25-30 करोड़ मुसलमान हैं, हम एटमी जंग नहीं चाहते, लेकिन हिंदुस्तान ये याद रखे हमारे पास पाव आधा पाव का भी बम है।
India is conventionally far superior to Pakistan with its larger and more advanced armed forces with better technology equipment. And it's because of India's conventional superiority that Pakistan has a low threshold and threatens India with swift nuclear escalation. India's nuclear policy, formally centered on a no first use policy, has shown signs of flexibility in recent years. Some Indian leaders have hinted that a major terrorist attack, particularly one linked to Pakistan, could trigger a strong response under certain circumstances, especially if chemical or biological weapons have been used. Pakistan should know that its nuclear saber rattling is not going to rattle anyone in India anymore. Bureau Report, India Today. Now we have a battery of experts who are joining us, domain experts on this special broadcast. But I want our viewers to understand, now Pakistan is a very narrow, dog-shaped country. And when you look at that country, and remember Muhammad Ali Jinnah, when he got to Pakistan, he said, I've got a moth-eaten Pakistan. So let me show you that moth-eaten Pakistan, and let me also show you where Pakistan, in this moth-eaten country on the map, has its missile and transport erectable launcher production bases, its air bases from where it can launch the F-16s, which are nuclear capable, where it has the garrisons, where it has these missile launchers or the transport erectable launcher sites, and where are the places like Sargodha, for example, or where its missile production happens. So that's the Pakistani map, all the way from Pakistan's Punjab province to the Sindh province. You're looking at where Pakistan has, so for example, let's start from the bottom. In Karachi, in Sindh, you have the Masroor Air Base. It has the Mirages there, which Pakistan insists are nuclear capable. It has the Akro Garrison, where it can find surface-to-air missiles. Then you start moving up north. You have the Shahbaz Air Base, once again capable of launching nuclear missiles. They have the F-16s that are at the Mushaf Air Base. You have the Gujranwala Garrison, and Gujranwala and Sargodha are very, very critical. The Rafiki Air Base once again has the Mirages. The Dharanwa Missile Complex is where they produce not just the missiles but also the transport erectable launchers. So this is where you see the Dera Ghazi Khan is a nuclear complex where they have plutonium production and uranium extraction, the Chashma reprocessing plant. So Pakistan's entire missile and nuclear weapons network is there on your television screen, and we shall take this base by base to get you more details over the course of the next several days. I have Lieutenant General Satish Dua joining me on this special broadcast. He's former Chief of the Integrated Defence Staff. He's also commanded the Kashmir Corps, joining us on this broadcast. Commodore Anil Jai Singh is a veteran submariner. And remember, it's the submarine arm that's a very critical force to deliver the second strike capability. We have with us Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor, former Director General Inspections and Flight flight safety to tell us more about what are India's options to take out the threat that emanates from Pakistan. And if we were to talk about, is it the Navy this time? Is it the Army? Is it the Air Force? Let me begin by asking, General Dua. General Dua, what do you make of Pakistan's nuclear saber rattling? What Hanif Abbasi, their railways minister, said, is that a potent threat, or is that a message perhaps for the West to intervene and save Pakistan?
Gaurav, Pakistan has been playing the nuclear card for too long. It was in the Kargil war, Kargil conflict, and later, especially during the Uri surgical strikes, and I was a corps commander that time,
Yes.
that we found that little space below the nuclear threshold. And we also repeated that after Pulwama happened by the precision airstrike at Jabba Top near Balakot.
Yes.
So, Pakistan, as you were yourself saying a little while ago, that Pakistan knows that it is no match for India in conventional terms, both qualitatively and quantitatively. And in fact, that is why it has waged this death by 1,000 cuts policy proxy war.
Yes.
So, Pakistan at this stage, when India has already unleashed a slew of very, very harsh measures, harshest among them being Indus Water Treaty, which a suspension which has withstood 3.5 wars, but never been sort of used as a leverage. So, when such measures have been unleashed, when Prime Minister has announced to the world, after Defense Minister having announced already, when he announced, we're speaking in Bihar, when he speaks in English, he's addressing the global audience and saying that we are going to track down not only the terrorists, but also the ecosystem. So Pakistan is rattled. Now, as far as your nuclear saber rattling is concerned, rattled it certainly is. So the only thing that it does, it knows, it does always in such situations is nuclear saber rattling. Because as you rightly said, Pakistan now perhaps wants West to intervene.
Okay.
Because they are rattling. And
now, when you look at the
last two sentences, just allow me last two sentences.
Go on, sir.
So nuclear rattling is different, but actually putting it into effect has different dimensions. It is not just nuclear weapons to be used. It is that military aspect. There is of mating different components. They are at different places. It's a complex process. It is not something that can be launched, because you were showing those bases. It's not that it can be launched from one base. True. That's one aspect. So when movement takes place, the world will pick it up. Sensors pick it up. Satellites pick it up. So there is a whole gamut. And on the last sentence from my side, there is the whole global dynamics. Because Pakistan today is seen as epicenter of terrorism. If it even tries to move in that direction, it will become a global pariah. So I think there is a lot to be seen in that. Yet we must always keep our guards up. Guard up, and we've already started with those exercises, revalidating our defense preparedness, and we are fully prepared to meet any threat.
Okay, Air Marshal Kapoor. When you look at Pakistan's nuclear saber rattling, when you look at the kind of fighter jets it has, when you look at its missiles, its missile launchers, and some of them, they're actually showing, they're displaying to the world that at least some military movement is taking place closer to the borders. Is that reassuring their own country, or are we in a position, when you look at the situation and when you look at the entire international border, line of control, and actual ground position line, are we in a position to dominate this battlefield completely, or is there a way we can punish them without the kinetic means just as yet?
The build-up which has happened is immediately after Pahalgam. So my understanding of the whole situation is that they were forewarned that we will ask you to be ready on this date at this time. And obviously, the very next morning after 22nd, you could see the movement on Flight 24 radar and other activities. Now, coming to your point about capabilities, Pakistan has F-16s, JF-17s, and Mirage 3 and 5 variants, which can carry nuclear weapons. And they have their own missiles, Raad, this thing is a Hataf 8 and Raad 2.
Yes.
These are the two weapons that they can carry. And primarily, these are nuclear gravity bombs along with certain air-launched cruise missiles. Now, the map which you just showed a little while ago, if you see, your viewers see this map, or if you can flash it again.
We'll just flash that map once again. That big map of, I want our viewers to see that map that we just showed, dog-shaped Pakistan with all its facilities. Go on, sir.
So if you notice, the complete processing plants, the nuclear complexes, and the other enrichment things are away from the Indian border. So that is the depth with which they have set up these things. The frontline bases acts as a guard to those bases, because if any attack comes towards Pakistan, it will come from the easterly direction. So
Correct.
This is how, when they planned their the primary industries and the bases which they planned, was keeping these things in mind. So it is not that their Dera Ghazi Khan and Kushat nuclear complex and Chashma processing plant and all these things will not be guarded. It will be guarded both by the air defense weapons, it will be guarded by the missiles, and it will have, of course, the air defense aeroplanes guarding from the ORFs. So we are aware of all the tactics that will be employed in case of any conflict. And obviously these would be a targets. But when, how, and from where is the question. So the dynamics which I covered on a channel the other day, sorry, I was on Republic the other day. See, the two things which are emerging out was, one is the large number of officers and their soldiers who are putting in the resignation.
Yes.
So the internal things which are coming out on social media, and also the lot of local commanders, their battalion commanders, their brigade commanders, their div commanders are sending panic messages that they are running short of ammunition and other things. So like I covered with you 2 days ago, that the army this time is stressed within their own law and order enforcement in their own country, starting from Balochistan right till...
No, that's a very pertinent point to make. In fact, I'll come to that point in just a moment. Can Pakistan fight on multiple fronts? Because that's again a map that we will put out. Because on India Today, we want our viewers to understand that Pakistan is not in a position to wage war against India except war by other means, which is using these radical Islamist terrorists. And I once again want to show you the map. I want to go by base and some of the prominent bases. So for example, when we talk about the Akro garrison, which is a possible nuclear capable missile base, I want to show you this missile base for a moment, where I want you to understand that what all does Pakistan have here. Watch this. When you take a look at this nuclear capable missile base, it has its own weapons handling building. It has the TEL. TEL is their transport launchers. They have the garages there. And this is where I want you to understand. So there's a covered ramp there. Watch these images very carefully. The weapons handling bases, the main missile launch area, the covered access, and this entire perimeter, if you watch in these images, this entire perimeter is very well guarded. What is it guarded by? Not just men on ground, it has surface-to-air missiles around it, which means very clearly that they expect and anticipate that these bases could well be targeted. And I once again want to bring in Commodore Anil Jaisingh into this conversation. Commodore, the fact that Indian Navy used the surface-to-air, the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile, was the signal that it's a supersonic cruise missile? Can it be intercepted? Or once you fire a barrage, maybe some can be intercepted, some will hit. Is that Pakistan's fear?
Yes, of course. I think, Pakistan this time has bitten off more than it can chew. We've seen right from independence, whenever the internal situation has been tenuous, they've tried to divert attention by doing something with India. And every time, unfortunately for them, it's backfired on them, but they don't seem to be learning any lessons. In this case, if you take this particular instance, I'm sure India is now quite sick and tired of all this, sort of constant sniping at our heels, and is planning a decisive action of some kind, whether kinetic or non-kinetic or a combination of both. But from a maritime perspective, The very fact that we can fire a missile like the BrahMos, and we've shown one yesterday by firing one, firstly indicates our readiness. Secondly, indicates our conventional superiority over the Pakistan Navy. The Pakistan Navy really is hardly a force to reckon with. If you just take the force levels, which are not really a very valid sort of comparison. But for example, we've got 16 submarines, they've got 3. Yes. So that's a sort of, asymmetry between our two naval forces. And more important, I think, is the fact that a fleet, just by its sheer presence, can intimidate a weaker force. Not only that, the Indian Navy, without firing a shot, can perhaps choke Pakistan economically. And I think, personally, that is Pakistan's jugular vein right now. They are so strapped economically that they do not have the capacity to fight a war, if that is what they're spoiling for. And insofar as that nuclear threat goes, I think, this is something we've heard regularly from them. Nuclear threats, firing a nuclear weapon is not something that one does, by the way, as General Dua said. It requires a very, very informed decision to do that. And obviously, India is not going to, just because they're going to do a tactical nuclear weapon at sea to probably take out an aircraft carrier, does not mean that India will not retaliate, with its massive retaliation second strike. So Pakistan has to be worried about that. So I don't think this nuclear rhetoric has been created by them many a time that it's not meant to be in show windows, it's meant for use against India, etc. This is not the first time, as you showed yourself in your program. But I think as far as the Navy is concerned, the Navy is overwhelmingly superior. We can establish firm sea control in the North Arabian Sea. If push comes to shove and the situation escalates, we can impose something like an exclusion zone. Just send the message out to the world that, look, your ships can come in with trade, but we don't guarantee their safety. That in itself will increase the insurance premium so much that Pakistan will not be able to afford those ships coming in to bring cargo to them. And this is particularly true if you decide to hit their energy.
Absolutely, and I'm sure Pakistan knows this. I mean, in 71, Karachi was burning for 11 days, and Pakistan ran out of fuel. But I want to understand from our from our experts, General Dua, I'm sure Asim Munir, the radical Islamist, Quran-quoting Maulana that he is, I am sure he must be knowing all of this, and yet he did, what he did at Pahalgam. Are we to understand? They've wargamed it. They've wargamed fine. After Uri, India did a surgical strike. After Pulwama, India did a Balakot. And then they did a swift retort. And after that, we were silent. Which means they've wargamed it, that we are not willing to go up the escalation ladder. And perhaps even now, we may try another Balakot, but we will not do. So they will strike. We strike. They strike again. We are not willing to climb up the escalation ladder. Is that the message he would be thinking in his tactical mindset?
No, I think Pakistan has been rattled over the last 5 years by their diminishing relevance in affairs of Kashmir. How India has turned the tables after abrogation of Article 370 and how peace, development, tourism, etc. has increased in Kashmir and feeling of normalcy setting in. So they've taken a leaf out of the Hamas playbook. Hamas also knew on 7th October when they attacked the Nova Music Fest and innocent people out for a party that they will invite retaliation. Now our retaliation may be different, but Asim Munir knows it. And I think he's doing this first to increase the relevance for the domestic audience. Perhaps he's also, look at the rant of a speech he gave a few days before this Pahalgam episode happened. He's also looking to consolidate his own position. Some even say that he's looking at a coup when things turn worse. So there are other dynamics at play within Pakistan. I'm sure he knew that they will invite that kind of wrath. But I think no one counted on Indus Waters suspension, which has the potential of actually creating a civil unrest in the country, in their country. We are already hearing the rumblings. And coupled with the Balochistan problem, the Pashtun problem, and the civil unrest happening over here, I think Pakistan and their rulers are in for a tough time.
They're in for a tough time. How long is your appreciation, Marshal Kapoor, of Pakistan? Because there are many who say, and in fact there are some voices within Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa that it says it's high time. Balochistan should become an independent country. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa should become, Pashtunistan. Sindh should become Sindhu Desh. And then all the terrorists can keep fighting. Those Pakistani Punjabi Muslims, they can continue to fight in Punjab province because the rest is ours and we will take what is ours. But Marshal Kapoor, is that a pipe dream of people in Baluchistan and Pashtunistan?
Yes, this time it is different. The struggle has been on, and this is the fourth or the fifth struggle of Baluchis seeking independence. But this time it is different because all the loose factions came together. Ms. Bahrang Baloch took on the mantle of women taking the front. In a country like Pakistan, I have never seen. In December last, in Jan this year, she took lakhs and lakhs of women who marched across complete of Balochistan right till Islamabad. So, and across in this journey, the armed forces put a lot of barriers and restrictions, but she did reach. The second point is the sympathy for Imran Khan, who is in prison. The third experience which I have is that the alliance between TTP and BLA. Now, 4 or 5 loose factions of Balochis have come under the umbrella of BLA. So this Jafar Express hijacking and also associated attack on the military has a stamp, because the weapons which are caught and taken by them bear the stamp of these weapons which are left behind by the Americans in Afghanistan. So those weapons
very interesting. You should point that out. So the impression you're giving is that Pakistan's internal troubles, the Indus Waters Treaty, will not lead to the situation escalating whatsoever, even to a conventional war, let alone expanding to a nuclear war. Gentlemen, I want to continue talking about this, but perhaps we'll leave it for a later day. For joining me here on India Today, many thanks. I quickly now want to cut across to the Israeli ambassador to India, who joins us on this special broadcast. Ambassador, many thanks for being patient and many thanks for joining me. You just heard our experts and they are saying that there are tremendous similarities between the October 7 Hamas terror attack in Israel, especially at that Nova Film Festival, and what happened in Pahalgam. The coordination, the cooperation between Hamas terrorists, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, between these transnational radical Islamist terror outfits, is that a cause for concern, and do you see that parallel, sir?
Well, the most worrying phenomenon is the inspiration that the atrocious attack of the 7th of October has given to terrorists around the world. Because this is being broadcasted despite the fact that Gaza is completely destroyed, and despite the fact that the Hamas military machinery is destroyed. The psychological effect of the fact that these crimes have been not only recorded but also shown live on TV on the 7th of October. This has given a huge wave of inspiration to terrorist organizations around the world. And following the 7th of October, Hamas leaders were invited to different parts of the world, including to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So beyond any intelligence that intelligence agencies may have regarding connections between terrorist organizations, what we clearly see here is that there is a pattern of brutality and criminality against civilians, against innocent people. The effect of shock, the effect of violence, the effect of murder, this is what the terrorists are taking from another, and they are encouraging another to commit these crimes in the name of religion.
And this isn't restricted just, to either India in Pahalgam or Pulwama or Pathankot or to Israel. Democracies virtually around the world are in the line of fire of these radical Islamist terrorists. I mean, US had 9/11, Israel had October 7, London had 7/7 and 21/7 bombings. Radical Islamists are on the streets of France, of Germany. What can and should democracies do together to operate together to ensure that these radical Islamist terrorists don't have space to operate? What's your advice, whether it's to India or to other democracies, on the road ahead, and especially countries like democracies like India?
Well, first of all, it's completely up to the Indian government to decide what to do and how to do it. They have the expertise, and I don't see in me or my fellow countrymen the ones who have to give advice to the Indian government in that respect. I think that it is important to back the initiative of the Indian government, because sponsors of terrorism have to be held accountable. We are suffering from the same phenomenon. There are countries around the world that are supplying arms to Hamas, they are supplying knowledge, they are supplying different kind of financial assistance, and these terrorists are being also harbored by other countries. So of course this is something that has to be isolated and punished, and therefore our approach is to support the Indian government while making an effort to stop such sponsoring.
And you've also spoken of the need for international sanctions and restrictions on entities that support radical Islamist terrorists or these extremist elements. Could you give us details of what Israel has done? Has it worked? Financial sanctions, using technology to keep an eye on them, intelligence operations. What is it that India could also do to strengthen India's war on Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror, sir?
Well, there are several areas of action and several ways in which we can be effective, provided that we work together, that we have a coalition of countries, of like-minded countries, that will tackle, number one, media companies and satellite companies that are giving platforms to the terrorist organizations and to extreme content. You know, there are hundreds of satellite channels, for example, that are broadcasting all over the world. These channels are taking services from companies who own the satellites. So we can approach together the companies that own the satellites to encourage them or to prohibit them from engaging with such elements. That's one example. Other example, of course, have to do with tightening the ropes around supply chains of materials, of raw materials that can help in the creation or in the production of weapons. Okay, so these are things that not only international institutions but also countries themselves, by working together, can maybe have an effect on. Sanctions can be put on those who are not cooperating with that line.
Sanctions can be put on countries that are not cooperating or entities that are not cooperating in this war on radical Islamist terror. So when Prime Minister Narendra Modi and your Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke, what is the deeper cooperation? What's the strategic cooperation that's either taking place or you see taking place between India and Israel to ensure that radical Islamist terror does not bleed your country or ours, your people and ours?
Well, first of all, we will continue working both on intelligence, on developing capabilities, and also on methodologies. But beyond that, this is linked also with your previous question. I think we can consult together how we can approach in a more efficient way stakeholders in the world in order to tackle both the terrorists and their sponsors.
Okay. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reiterated India's resolve to bring the perpetrators of terror to justice, not just the perpetrators of terror, but also those who backed them. How difficult has Israel's journey been, based on what happened to your country in October 7? What are lessons that Israel has learnt, and what are steps that India must take for swift and decisive international action to ensure that a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror like Pakistan can be held to account?
Well, Gaurav, I think that your Prime Minister and the entire government have their experience they need in order to tackle the problem. We can work together both quietly on the security channels and I think maybe more openly on the diplomatic channels in order to promote cooperation against terrorists at the national level, at the international level, and we are determined to do that.
Okay. But this entire ecosystem in the world, there is this ecosystem that seems to give cover to radical Islamist terror, the use of democratic systems against democracies. What needs to be done to ensure that terrorists don't enjoy, the kind of patronage they seem to do, and global criticism goes beyond just condemning a terror strike. It needs to have concrete action to ensure that terror is not a low-cost option for any country.
Well, first of all, countries have to stop contextualizing terrorism. You cannot contextualize terrorism, okay? Terrorism is forbidden, is out of the question, is out of the rules of the game, and it doesn't matter whether they emanate from a territorial dispute or another kind of dispute. It's completely irrelevant. And the countries must not only condemn the violence, but they have to stop contextualizing terrorism, okay? This is number one. Number two, those who are condemning, they should actually, put their deeds behind their words and help those who are hit by terrorism, like India and Israel, to delegitimize those organizations, to punish those who sponsor them. So, yes, we've seen many condemnations around the world. The question is, what is the follow-up to the condemnation?
Absolutely.
Both in terms of how they speak about it, but also in terms of how they do what they do in order to prevent these things from happening in the future.
And what can the international community do together? Right now, for example, India is bleeding. We've lost 26 of our people where these radical Islamist terrorists came. And you just heard the eyewitness, the survivor, who said they saw identity cards or words to their effect. They asked their names, found out religion, and then shot people in cold blood, often at point-blank range in front of their children. What does one do to ensure that such elements do not find safe sanctuaries in a state sponsor of terror like Pakistan, and terror does not remain a low-cost option for Pakistan to bleed India?
Well, we've seen how the United States has treated sponsors of terrorism in the past. You have it in the sets of sanctions that have been put not only by the United States but also by Europe on countries like Iran, like Syria, like Lebanon, like Iraq, etc., like Sudan. So there are plenty of examples. Okay, the question is whether they can follow through on that example, on those examples, when it comes to additional countries that sponsor terrorism like Pakistan.
That's a very pertinent point you make, Ambassador, for joining me here on this India First special broadcast. Many thanks. That actually truly is India's civilizational philosophy that has been articulated very well by Rashtrakavi Ramdhari Singh Dinkar in Shakti and Kshama, where he said, "Sach पूछो तो, सच पूछो तो शर में ही बसती है दीप्ति विनय की, संधि वचन संपूज्य उसी का जिसमें शक्ति विजय की." Only the brave, only the strong are respected in this world, and that is where India needs to display its full military, strategic and national might to ensure terror does not remain a low-cost option for Pakistan. That is all I have for you on this India First special broadcast. Many thanks for watching.